The Everything Sequel podcast is brought to you by Tuity Fitness and the Vegas Beer Guys.
The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language, and I will not go to my room. Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is the Friday the 13th edition. We're in the middle. We're going with Friday the 13th, the final chapter. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man trying to take the hatchet out of his mask, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hi, Tom.
I'm a dead fuck?
All improvised.
Well, that's it. It's like the opposite of cookie-cutter dialogue, isn't it? It's improvised idiosyncrasies.
Yes.
And what strikes me
You want to
about...
make your movie idiosyncratic? Just add Crispin Glover. That's my advice.
Just add a Glover, right? I mean,
yeah, right.
I feel like you could, if you've ever seen Diamonds Are Forever, you'll know that
Right.
there's that works for both father and son. But,
there you go.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm watching that scene, I always have it in the back of my mind that it's probably improvised. Behind the scenes information confirms that. But when I think about improvised content in film and television, it's usually more guided than that, right? It's like the
right.
actors are working to a set outline, like in Christopher Guest mockumentaries or on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Curb Your Enthusiasm comes to mind, right?
Or Mike Leigh, the filmmaker Mike Leigh, who has actors improvise scenes and then writes a screenplay based on what they do.
Based on that, right?
But this scene doesn't feel like it has any end point that they're trying to reach, or
or
that they're trying to generate anything substantive, and yet
it becomes part of the integral part of a character throughout the rest of the movie.
It's kind of the most important scene in the movie, and I guess just for them being two actors who are thinking about their characters and have read the script and are on the set, they could, this idea of like I'm a dead fuck couldn't be thematically more on point for this movie and for the series as a whole, because this is a series where sex and violence kind of become synonymous.
Yeah,
and
sure.
So that idea of I'm a dead fuck is like the perfect marriage of the two.
I love the question that Crispin Glover has when he first hears it. You could, there's this moment you first think it's improvised because you have this moment of a recognition from him not understanding fundamentally what he's accusing him of.
Absolutely.
But responding genuinely. I like the moment is pretty glorious. But the moment.
Even in the scene, they break it down conceptually. It works on two levels. In the conversation they're having, he's just saying, "You're a lousy lay."
Lousy lay, right.
But in the big scheme of the movie, we know that both of these guys are going to die because that's how these films go down, and neither of them are women or virgins.
Right.
So,
and on top of it, if you fuck it all, you'll be dead.
Yeah. It just feels like there's something in the water on this movie that leads to what I've already described as cinematic lightning in a bottle moments. This scene is absolutely one of them, but there's, I would say, at least conservatively 4 more in the movie that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yes, we'll get to them.
Yeah,
I'm sure Crispin Glover dancing is one for you, because it is for me.
Yeah, but it is absolutely. And it comes out of left field, and it's all the things that are great about the movie. It's offbeat, it's quirky, but it doesn't have that air of smug satisfaction that a lot of self-consciously quirky movies have.
Sure.
I guess because it's trying to be trying to be a straight down the middle horror movie, and that really helps because it doesn't start smelling itself as a self-consciously quirky film. Yet it is, and Crispin Glover, when I watch his performance in this movie, it makes me think of comparable performances in Napoleon Dynamite or something. Like,
sure,
you know,
yeah, right.
It's, you know, the first time I saw Napoleon Dynamite, I thought it, you know, I was disgusted by it because I thought that they were exploiting a developmentally disabled man. And I have that same feel, you know, I'd obviously know Crispin Glover as an actor in a way that I didn't know that John Heder was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I have the same feeling here, I think, that it just we're getting a kind of, it just feels so non-actory,
Yeah, right.
everything he's doing on screen, which I guess is underlined by the fact that he's, as with Napoleon Dynamite, he's working incredibly hard to
to pull
make
it off,
it
to make
appear
it
that
so.
way.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking Friday the 13th. We're dropping numbers, the final chapter. We haven't given any discussion of that, but the titles go from numbers to this one with no number to Roman numerals.
Yeah.
They really run the gamut of sequels, which I really enjoy. But the movie's directed by one Joseph Zito.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's been around. Clearly, he's got one muse in a certain Chuck Norris, because we're talking about Missing in Action and Invasion USA, Delta Force One, The Last Patrol.
So basically, he's the director that made Chuck Norris look respectable.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And once they part ways,
And then I think I'm
it's
remembering
Walker's
this.
Texas Ranger time.
I'd have to look this up again, but I remember another Chuck Norris movie because Blood Rage is on his list of the movies he's done.
That's
And
a
I'm
better
trying-
title for this movie.
Yeah, that's true. If it's the one I'm thinking of, it's sort of a Jason before Jason. It was like a guy who just couldn't be killed. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But
Well, there's also the Prowler as the.
I was gonna say,
the main
the-
precedent. Yeah.
the main precedent is the Prowler, and then he's got a couple others, Red Scorpion and Power Play. But so Joseph Zito is one of those kind of yeoman directors. He's been around, and he's just quietly trying to do his thing.
Yeah.
Now, let's upset you, because this movie has 24% on Rotten Tomatoes,
I knew it was coming. You know.
like all these movies.
Yeah,
But
people really watch this movie and they don't
get it.
they don't even think, well, it's got a couple of great performances in it at the very least,
Mhm.
right? It's way
Yeah,
more
right.
than that. But how can you leave that going, wow, Corey Feldman is
Killing it.
an actor beyond his years, and Crispin Glover's
At one point,
just-
literally.
and Crispin Glover is, obviously going to be something new and exciting.
All right, yeah.
I don't understand why at the very least those couldn't be your takeaways from this movie.
Sure. Well, the audience
Not
didn't care.
enough?
Budget of 2.6 million. Opening weekend 11.1. In the USA and the world, $32.9 million. I want to say it's the high watermark for the ones we're watching.
Well, that's the benefit of the title, isn't it? It's like
I have to go back and look.
Go see it now, because this is
Yeah.
the last one. Last time we'll be doing this, everyone.
Yeah, we're done.
It's like the zenith of false marketing, isn't it?
I'm wrong.
Oh.
Part 3 got 36.6. We discounted the luster of 3D.
Absolutely. But I mean, that's it's a. I'll take them at face value that they thought it would they genuinely thought it would end here, but it's also a marketing strategy, isn't it? It's like calling it the final chapter rather than part 4 is to sort of say that this is the last time you'll be able to see a.
Well, I
a
also
Jason
think
movie.
it goes to how these movies were produced, because they, with the exception of 2 and 3, they're always kind of bringing in
Yep.
a new director, but Mancuso Jr. is always pretty much always there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Up until 5, he takes
Mhm.
kind of a back seat, but he's there, and so there's some kind of continuity within that. So he claims, but
Because he claims not to have witnessed some of the appalling behavior of Danny Stein.
behavior of its director. But what I do like is that they give a lot of autonomy to their directors.
Yeah,
It
I
seems
think
like
that's
he lets
essential.
them go with their ideas, and so uh, part of I think they really did think this was going to be the last one. But when Joseph Zito said, "Well, I'm going to have Corey Feldman open his eyes and look down the barrel of the camera
Yeah.
to finish this movie," as a nod to, "Hey, maybe we're not done." That was his choice, and
Yeah, it's just
they let it stand pat. I like that.
it's just smart storytelling and good directing that, I can get that shot, so let's get it. Just in case someone needs it.
Yeah, so let's do it.
Yeah, let's in
Right.
case someone down the line, this really isn't the last movie, and then in case someone needs it, it's the Roger Corman philosophy, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a great wall. Let's film that wall. We'll use it somewhere.
I might use that wall. I'll use that wall somewhere. Right.
So I'm all in favor of those kind of game day choices,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what you hire someone like Joseph Zito for, I think.
Sure.
And he's clearly able to capture these sort of spontaneous moments on film
Well, yeah.
very well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's my big that's partly the reason why this is the top of my list, because looking back at my notes, I have one or two reservations about the final chapter and part 2, and pretty much nothing for part 6.
Right.
Like nothing as substantial, but I still think I think this is a better movie because it transcends those two movies at points.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like what they do, the success of what they do on screen transcends those
Yeah.
two other movies, but those two other movies might be technically better than this.
Mm-hmm. And I think I spoke to this in our ranking episode, but this movie is the movie that survived the zeitgeist
Yeah.
in terms of how the United States of America remembers Friday the 13th sequels. So I can't take that away from the movie.
No, and it's pitched from the very beginning as a kind of testament movie that you can make fun of the final chapter because there are numerous movies after this, but
Mm-hmm.
it's structured to it's structured, if this is the last Jason movie, we're not going to leave anything on the table,
Right. Yeah.
and we're going to give you plausible deniability,
Right. Yeah.
that it's all over if you want it, and
Mm-hmm.
if you want to go on, you can. So
More power to you.
yeah. And I think that's clear from, well, I mean, we can go straight into it.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
we're
clear
gonna.
from the recap montage that
I was gonna
begins
say
the
this.
movie. It's a summer. It's a recap of the series,
Of all the movies,
of
right?
all the movie, one to this is the final chapter. So here's 1 to 3.
Yeah.
That's the idea behind it. And again, rather than going with the more conventional chunk of the ending of the last movie, which 3 did, they do something.
And 2 did.
Well, two did it in a more innovative way, by breaking it up as a dream sequence, and here as well.
That's true.
They've thought about how they want to present the material, at least, rather than just replaying the ending.
Mm-hmm.
So it sort of starts midway through 2,
But it
and then it turns into a
right.
like a summary.
Mm-hmm. And I think it speaks to what you
It's
were saying
previously
about
on Friday the 13th.
Yeah, right. I think it speaks to what you were saying about the good intention of having this be the last movie. Here are
Yeah.
all the movies you've seen up to this point.
Probably shouldn't have tried to relitigate the most confusing aspects of the storyline, though. If I was in charge of this montage, I wouldn't have anything with Jason as a boy in the lake.
In the lake.
Because it just throws everything else off.
It fucks shit up.
But this would have been the perfect time to erase that from popular memory.
Right.
We're
not sure if Jason's a water zombie, but don't worry about it. We're going to tackle it in 2 movies.
Right, exactly. They do something towards the end of this movie which is equally as problematic for that timeline. And it also reminds me of how this would be different if they tried to do a recap like this today. Because now they have the technology and the how should I put it, laziness, where they would happily put like digitalize Jason and put him into the ending of Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't even necessarily need digital to do that, but you know, they're just going where the footage takes them. It's like, what story can we tell with the footage that we have?
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that approach. And it begins as the sort of salient facts of the story, and then it just descends into a best kills montage.
Yeah, right.
Which I think is like, again, it's like the
I don't have a problem.
The storytelling tensions of the series in a microcosm, isn't it? It's sort of like, you're not really here for a...
It sums up why people come to the series in the first place.
Yeah, you're not here for a coherent timeline, are you? You're here to see disabled
You're here to see
people.
this.
Yeah, to see disabled people fall downstairs.
Yes.
And this is the third time that Betsy Palmer has appeared.
Yeah, right.
Like, this is the third generation copy of the footage that she was first featured in part 2.
Yeah.
So she's
I love that.
She's a specter of a specter, and in the in World she was a specter at the in that scene.
Yeah. Well, and we're not there yet, but at a certain point in this movie, we're gonna continue the kind of mythology of the movie by giving her first name.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to see Pamela Voorhees. Yeah.
Yeah, Pamela.
Which is also the name of the final girl, isn't it? In this. Oh, in the next movie. Sorry, in the next movie.
Not this movie.
Yeah.
No more block letters for the title.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Although the exploding subtitle did remind me a lot of
3 or 2.
Yeah, 2. Yeah, not 3. Definitely not 3.
Not 3.
There's no community theater smoke and disco ball lighting here. It's also very Police Squad.
Yes. Oh, I can't believe you said that. I have the same note.
But I already, like, the movie's barely started, and we've already looped back to the second movie twice. Mm-hmm. And I wonder whether, you know, we're always talking about the third movie going back to the first movie, whether there's something to be said for the fourth movie
going back to the second,
imitating the second sequel, the first sequel. Because
that's pretty good.
You know, when you look at which of the movies are kind of spiritually, or as you use your term, cosmically connected to each other, to me, 2 and 4 are bedfellows.
Okay.
Spiritually. Definitely skipping.
Well, they feel, 3. Yeah, they feel more grounded than some of these other movies.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. I made a note that after we get I like the cool red blood of the title, by the way. Mm-hmm. And then we get the final chapter explosion. But I wrote afterwards, I said, hey, we can afford helicopters now.
Yeah. So another couple of things about the title sequence. We're told we're going to get female twins. So, you know, I'm assuming this is as deviant as I think it is. And it is. The return of Tom Savini, you know, basically wrapping up the franchise, they believed, by bringing back the makeup auteur of the original movie. And now it reads based on characters created by.
Yeah.
Because it's like the story is still in development, so everyone who wrote on the first 3 movies still needs to be credited, because we've not established anything. Every movie
nothing's concrete yet.
Yeah, every movie we add something that is just as essential as what came before it in terms of the story. So it really does feel like, you know, collective writing.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, as you're right, helicopters, ambulances, police cars. Once again, we're beginning in the aftermath of the last movie, but this time with the location rather than the characters.
Yeah.
So that's the twist.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the sardonic humor that begins this film, where the medics come in and say, all dead, some emergency.
They're all dead.
You know?
Yeah, some emergency. I have the note too.
That perspective is such a nice touch, because the alternative is you've got like 5 minutes with the survivors, and
Mhm.
then we just move on. So I like the use of the people coming in and cleaning up the mess. That we
Absolutely.
see these scenes through their perspectives, and
Right.
I think it's a really good choice. And again, it sets that kind of sardonic, slightly offbeat tone.
I guess it kind of sets up 5 too, because they're gonna play major characters. So
Yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah, completely. Yes. If you're looking for continuity, then there it is. And I wanted to ask you about one of the choices
Okay.
when Jason's, let's say, corpse is being is being dragged through, on the gurney going through the hospital corridor. We see like a family room where there's a girl crying, and then her parents or a chaplain or something are around her.
Yeah.
Is that supposed to be Chris and her family? Does it
Oh, I didn't
matter
make.
either way?
I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But
I was like,
I didn't make the connection.
okay, because they don't linger on it. You just see it
Yeah. Right.
fleetingly, but
Like passing by.
I wonder whether Joseph Zito was like, if you want that
I
to be
think-
Chris, it can be Chris.
I think my attention was taken more by the coroner, because I was like, hey, that's fucking Fackler from Police Academy.
Yep, and it's also the rabbi from Seinfeld.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he also looks like Dr. Leo Spaceman from 30 Rock. But it's not.
Oh wow, you're right. Yeah.
Well,
But I'll tell you this, you know, I think part of horror movies is sort of, you can find shots
Mhm.
shots that speak to you, and or not Michael, but Jason going into the cold storage.
Well.
Sorry, I'm on last year.
Yeah.
But Jason going into the drawer,
Mhm.
and you see that little shot of breath coming up. I dig that a lot.
Yeah, all the camera choices, the having the point of view of Jason's corpse on the gurney, putting the camera on the gurney.
Because for at least down the hallway, aren't we kind of like at crotch looking towards his face?
Yeah, it's
As
like,
they're-
it's it's what would become the classic ER shot,
Yeah.
of the gurney going through the
But for this series, what I like about it, and I spoke to this about Joseph Zito trying to keep him dead for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like is during those shots, you're expecting him to get up.
Mhm.
Why else are we at that angle?
Yeah.
And it just doesn't happen. And so I thought that was really smart, that he said that the audience is complicit in bringing him back to life, which I think is really fucking cool.
The audience wills him back to life. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, when we first meet the rabbi from Seinfeld, he's eating a sandwich as well. So
I
there's just
prefer
these-
Fackler. I
Okay,
prefer
Fackler.
Fackler.
All right. First see. Dr.
You're
Leo-
right, though. That
Dr.
is
Leo
a great
Spaceman.
cameo of him as the rabbi.
It is.
You know, Elaine.
Let's call her Elaine. And he wondered whether it was really cheating if he pays for it. Yes, I love that episode. So there's just these directorial scenic touches that just
Yeah.
immediately elevate the material. Again, we go back to the idea of irreverent gallows humor, which is great because
Yeah.
it learns the lessons of the last movie. Like, you don't have to take it too seriously, but
Right.
this is where you want to be. You don't want this overworked comedy of, like, feeding a rabbit and then feeding yourself and then
hmm
seeing the shadow of your poop in the reflection. It's like
Sure.
so like that was so overworked compared to this. This is so low key,
Right.
but you get the same effect.
But I also, I don't want to discount, I think we've talked about this before with many other series, because famously sequels are so derided. But when you feel like you're in safe hands early, directorially,
Yeah.
it makes a big difference.
It really does. And this is, this is exactly what you want from the hospital sequence, by which I mean the second half of the movie, in Halloween 2. And it's clearly pulling from that, once again.
hmm As always.
But, all the horny hospital hijinks. You know, we're going
Sure,
back
right,
to the
right.
Halloween 2. Well, we know this series likes to cherry pick from other horror franchises.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you know, it's over. You know, it does its job and then it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And so it learned again. It learned a lesson that Halloween 2 didn't, or it learned that lesson from Halloween 2, I guess.
Well, two Halloween's movies didn't learn that lesson.
That's very true. Historically, you're absolutely correct, and of course, you know, I love everything about the aerobics he's watching on TV.
It's very funny.
It captures, you know, it's redolent of 1984.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember, you know, I was very young at the time, but I remember those aerobics. Like my grandma had those aerobics videos around the house and that kind of stuff. And
Oh yeah, I mean,
it's always been in my mind. It's always been porn for cowards.
Right. I also thought of it because I think my mom probably had the Jane Fonda workout around the house.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to be able to watch that sort of thing and not really get into trouble. You're
porn for cowards.
Your mom might walk around the corner and see you just not doing any exercise watching the Jane Fonda workout.
Well, that's clearly
and she might say, "What the hell are you doing?" I don't know. This was just in there.
I'll say. Well, it's the same, and in World, it's the same here because this doctor can't put on, you know, Debbie Does Dallas.
Yeah, right.
But he can put this on, and it is no less titillating. I mean, you know, it's the tits and ass shots are as transparent as porn.
The only thing I question in the scene at all is why the nurse succumbs to this guy even a little bit at all.
Yeah,
that's very 1980s. The fact that she's okay, well,
yeah, but that's the thing, though. I mean, it has all of that. It's still a 1984 movie, but they find a way to normalize and naturalize this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love the moment where they mention the hospital on the TV news and they both cheer.
Yeah, right.
That's capturing something that you would that like no one would. You can't quantify that as why that is real. Why that's realistic.
Why that works.
Why
yeah,
that feels real, but it does.
Right.
It's a world away from the diner owners. You know, they're just the broadest, most stereotypical version of
right.
that.
Yes, totally.
But these feel like real people because of all of these choices.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the outburst that he has when he spill something. I can't remember what it is, but coffee, yeah, and he goes, "Jesus Christmas."
Yes,
and,
I like that moment.
And again, it's like it doesn't feel like cookie cutter dialogue. It feels like this guy's kind of idiosyncratic.
Absolutely,
you know.
But on top of it, I think the scene's punctuated by something I feel like we hadn't seen before, because Jason is gonna come over and saw his neck.
Yeah.
And that's a gangbuster Tom Savini idea.
Yeah.
For a 1980s horror movie, you know, you really do wonder what the fuck is going on. How did they do that? Because you realize there's prosthetic on the neck,
mm-hmm.
but it looks like a real saw that it's going in. So what are they doing? Yeah. It feels dangerous, even though you could see the machinations of it.
Exactly. Well, that's this movie in a nutshell, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it hits all the right notes, you know. He's being killed to the horny 80s Lady Thundercat on the TV screen.
Mm-hmm.
So we're melding sex and violence, and as you say, we're getting some new weaponry in. It's like a method of killing we've not seen before in the series, which, you know,
or at all in any series,
imaginatively staged by Tom Savini. So
right.
You got some high quality horror in here too. Gutting and you know, gutting the nurse as well. It's sort of return of that idea of animalistic butchering, which we haven't really had since part 2.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like it's a greatest hits almost, or greatest hits, if you will.
Well, we're not at surprise yet.
No, no, that's yeah. So
and
then it ends, which again, you know, is great because you don't want to be in that hospital for the entire movie.
Exactly. We're gonna go on and meet Tommy's family.
Yeah. So I mean, again,
I'm really impressed, by the way, when you watch the behind the scenes stuff, because they found the one cabin they liked, which is Tommy's house.
Mm-hmm.
And Joseph Zito really pushed for that house because they liked it so much. So they said, okay.
Oh,
and he
that's
was like,
right.
we gotta have a house next door, so we're gonna have to build that house. And they were like, why don't you just find two houses close to each other? He goes, no, I like this house. And he was able to convince them. Now, budget constraints means that the house got smaller and smaller and smaller. And more difficult to film in, but like he says,
it's that house like after the hurricane, you know, after Ned Flanders' house after the hurricane. It's just kind of it's just this tiny this body.
I don't think this is supposed to be like this. But it's a cool looking house, and they did actually build a house next door to this other cabin. I thought that was cool.
It's very cool. Also, I think, you know, I got the sense with part 3 that by starting with the diner owners, they were trying to open up the story to other kinds of characters other than young, horny people.
Sure, yeah.
At you know, training to be camp counselors. But this is actually following through on that, right? It's because you've got like a mother and a daughter. And
you never had a sense that there were families around.
Age. So it's intergenerational. It's, you know, it's co-ed. It's a new set of characters and stories that you can tell with this setup. We've not seen this kind of family dynamic before.
Yeah, not in the series.
No. Yeah, obviously in film it's been covered, but not here. And then, you know, of course, like establishing Tommy as part of the fandom. It's like a tribute to the fandom of Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
where he's introduced
and to Tom Savini himself.
To Tom, because he's customizing.
We're gonna meet him with a mask on his head.
He says, "I just customize it," so he's a Tom Savini surrogate.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that it's, you know, metatextuality without breaking the fourth wall,
without winking. Yeah,
that nodding or winking to the audience. It's like having a character who feel, you know, and it's a tribute to the fan community that's made Friday the 13th what it is, and
as popular as it is, right? In
a more interesting, dramatic way than just reading Fangoria on screen before getting killed.
Totally.
So I think it's a really nice nod to, you know, a kind of a thank you really to the fans. Again on the assumption that this is going to be the last in the series.
That this is the last time we're doing this.
It really, at this point at least, it still feels like that.
Sure. Well, you know, Jason's alive. We've got our first kills. We're about to meet our teenagers. Why don't we take a break?
Sounds perfect.
All right. We'll do that, and we'll be right back, everyone. Time to talk dead fuck. Does the coronavirus have you feeling oogie? Have you been sitting on your couch for weeks? Nay, have you been sitting on there for months? Well, it's time for you to get back in shape. Check out 2AT Fitness. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. 2AT Fitness was started by Tina Bernard. She is ready and raring to go to help you get back into the shape you want to get into. They've got all kinds of classes. They've got outdoor in-person classes. They've got online classes if that's what you prefer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back in shape. You're going to find a variety of exercises. You're going to have strength training, cardio, weightlifting, even fun 5-minute burnouts that will push you to your limits. So get off the couch, get into shape. Go ahead and check out 2AT Fitness. Tina Bernard has got you for all your needs. I know her personally. She's fantastic. You're not going to meet a better person to help you become the new you. Check it out. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here. We're chatting about Tom's favorite in the series and my second favorite, Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, 1984 sequel directed by Joseph Zito. Well, as I said, Tom, I mean, we're going to meet the kids, but we pretty much have already talked about the dead fuck portion of the meeting of the kids.
Yeah, I mean, my overall feeling about their introduction is that they immediately, there's a contrast from the last movie. They don't feel as broadly drawn.
Right.
They feel awkward and strange in a way that is, feels true of teenage characters.
Yeah. But they also feel very likable.
Yeah.
Which I like a lot.
Movie's not trying to fit them in boxes straight away. And that
right.
makes a huge difference, as does the acting and the acting and the writing and the directing of them in these scenes.
Yeah, I think all of that's really, pitched at a good spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I spoke to this too, but we passed Pamela Voorhees' grave.
And this helps with the consolidation of the timeline because we've for the first time we've caught up.
Yeah, right.
Probably the first and last time in the movies that we're covering. I don't remember offhand whether Friday the 13th, the original says it's set in 1979, but this
it does
confirm it does. Yeah. I thought there was a date in it and it was 79.
Yeah.
But because we're now 84, and the 5-year time jump is between 1 and 2, but each of these movies takes place like one day after the other from then on.
Yeah, that's the only glaring omission in this movie is that Doug is looking for his sister, and it seems as though he's been looking for her for quite some time.
And it's been hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, didn't the actor also question this, and it just fell on deaf ears?
I don't think he questioned it. I don't know if he questioned it on set. I think I remember in the behind the scenes that Joseph Zito just kind of cops to saying, "I just honestly thought it was more time," and so yeah,
that's great.
So we just kind of fucked that up.
He's also like doing a what's his name, Walter Koenig, on the set of Star Trek 2, where he knew full well that Chekhov wasn't in Space Seed, but he felt like if he brought it up, they would take him out of the movie.
Since you're bringing Star Trek back up, I do want to mention, because you mentioned that in the ranking episode, and it's funny because
that's my conspiracy theory.
Yeah, but what else?
It's the same series.
Yeah. And I remember thinking at the time that maybe I didn't make that connection, and then I realized I absolutely did make that connection, and I just forgot to talk about it in our ranking episode, because you know what this movie is also the start of? A mini trilogy within the series itself.
Oh my god! That's not even a parallel I considered.
Yep.
We keep finding them. Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. Add it to the list.
How great is that?
It's fascinating. Yeah, the government wants you to think they're two different series, but they're the same.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder how the Next Generation movies and everything from 7 onwards match. Probably not that well.
Not as well, is my guess.
I think that conspiracy theory falls apart at that point.
We get our banana death.
Oh, this is great for so many reasons. She's got like a Roadrunner-esque sign, which has two sides to it.
I like that.
Depending on how people respond.
To her. It's a great joke.
It's a great joke, and I love that, I'm a big fan of verbal humor on screen when it's done well like this. Because it goes back to, Roadrunner. That's why they do it in Roadrunner, because it's very effective. I love the fact that, the kids in the car are like, oh, let's pick her up, and then they see her and it's like, oh no, drive off.
Yeah.
And rather than, like I feel like
because it feels
part
very
three-
teenagery the way they do it, right? I mean, it
Right, I feel like part 3 and most movies of this time would leave it there,
Mhm.
and that'd be the joke. But she gives them the finger,
right
and then she gets
turns
killed,
the
so it's
sign
like,
around and says "fuck you." I like that.
she's got like they've given her agency in the scene where they didn't have to.
hmm
And I'm not saying this movie is by any means a model of
No, right? Yes.
gender representation, but at least it has that kind of ability to redress the kind of the sexism of other characters.
Right.
And then the banana death is beautiful. I
It's-
mean,
It's really good.
because
Did you
it's
see how
also,
they
again,
did that
like,
on the
all-
behind the scenes with
Yeah, I know, it's incredible.
that sort of it's like a soft knife that's like wrapped around her neck that comes out of the prosthetic neck. That's unbelievable.
Whenever they describe these
Apparatuses.
what they actually did, it's basically like, something that hurts the actor but doesn't kill them.
Yeah. Right.
That was their idea of like of safe practices.
Well, I think
Yeah, they're gonna end up with hypothermia, but
I think it's his name's Ted White, right? That is playing Jason, I believe, in this movie. And in those behind the scenes in the Camp Crystal Lake Memories, they talk about that first nurse that he kills, and he kind of pushes her head
that's
against
right,
the
yeah.
wall. But there was like a little button on
That's
on the
right,
hat that went into her head, and she kind of yipe, ow. And he said, "I'm really sorry. I'm just trying to be Jason killing you. I'm not really trying to hurt you."
gonna blow your mind again.
Yes.
Someone else that guy reminds me of. Sheriff Lobo.
Oh, very much so. Yes. Oh, and you brought out Sheriff Lobo, which I love.
Who's also in, of course, Battle for the Planet of the
Yeah.
Apes. Your favorite of those movies.
Did I say favorite?
No, you didn't.
I don't think so.
I like giving you. I got giving you shit about it, even though I secretly admire you.
So much better than people give it credit for.
Absolutely, and I totally agree. And I'm part of the problem
Now that I agree with.
in any context. So, but it's all there again. The idea of sex and violence coming together. The sort of the banana, the phallic nature of the banana.
Yeah,
but
right.
also the cartoon legacy of the banana skin, and
Yeah, right.
it's all it's all there. It's such a great. It's not quite a first kill, but it's like an early kill.
It's an early kill.
and it's one
I
of
wrote
those
down,
kills that doesn't really matter. Like it's
Yeah.
just. This is the equivalent of the bikers in the last film. It's like these are just the training wheels, right?
Right.
For,
Yes,
for the
exactly.
big kills. But the training wheels are as good as the
totally.
the eventual bike.
I mean, I wrote down who else, maybe other than Zito, is going to think of a banana-centered death.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And filming it in such an offbeat way
Mm-hmm.
to make it work better than it would. I mean, with the setup that Tom Savini's got, it's gonna
Sure.
kill, quite literally, with the audience. But this adding that extra touch is just the cherry on the cake.
It's good stuff. The kids get to their house, and the family is gonna meet the teens. I kind of like that. There's this sort of worried look from the mom.
Yeah, which
there's just a little added depth of character and
behind the Camp Crystal Lake Memories sort of describes this. There was a kind of cat and mouse thing going on between Joseph Zito and the actor playing it, where neither of them was saying that they wanted there to be some suspicion around the mother, but they were both.
But they were both thinking along same lines.
He put it in a performance, and he
Yeah.
was conscious of it as a director, but neither said anything to each other.
Yeah.
Which I think speaks to, maybe that again, there's something almost telepathic going on in this set, where everyone's on the same page at all times without consciously saying anything to each other. I love that, and again, talking about real moments that just spill out of this film. The family sandwich.
Yes, right.
Like it, I just think it reminds me of that, of it really reads as one of those very real family rituals that if you're not part of it, just looks
It
really
looks
weird.
weird. Yeah, exactly.
If you're not in on the joke,
Yeah.
you think this is a family of serial killers.
This is the family that maybe I don't want to spend I don't want to play a whole game of Monopoly with these people.
And in this cabin in the woods, I would be forced to.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, Gordon the dog comes up, and it's like they made a list of what I wanted to see in a Friday the 13th sequel, and now it's all on screen.
And that's there for you.
I was like, oh, a great dog as well? My God. This movie's really spoiling me.
Well, even though because I wrote down, because I, at least in my notes, I wrote that Feldman is watching Samantha like a creep. But it's
very endearing, though.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as voyeurism goes.
As far as voyeurism goes, it's performed in such a way where you could kind of live vicariously through him at that age of how excited you would be if you looked out the window and just happened to see,
And his mom fucks it up for him, right?
Yeah, mom does fuck it up.
Him.
She pulls down the blind. He pretends to be asleep, and she pulls down the blind.
It's a pervert moment that Corey Feldman manages to make adorable, genuine, sweet, and funny just with his acting.
Yeah,
and I think it's absolutely brilliant, and it's a great way to sort of manage some of that seediness.
Right. And so,
comes with this kind of story.
I mean, we've talked about it before. These are slasher films from the 80s, so we're going to get, lots of boob. But the very next morning, and I'll say this for both what's happening narratively in the film and then what's happening on set as well. Because I love that the next morning when they're skinny dipping in the lake, you're going to expect to see plenty of boobs. But I like in the Crystal Lake Memories, the girls, the twins, I think specifically, we're talking about. Yeah. Well, we knew that this was going to happen, and the guys just kind of said, well, we're game, we'll go bottomless. And so they're skinny dipping, and so they have to go through what the women have to go through with having to be naked in front of others. And I like that there was that much camaraderie on the set that...
It really reads, doesn't it?
It does read, yeah, totally.
It doesn't fit, yeah, I think...
It makes it feel less exploitive.
It feels like awkward adolescent comedy.
Yeah, right.
As opposed to, creep. I was going to say this in the abstract, like creepy man in the bushes watching kids have sex. But that exact thing happens in the next movie. So
yeah,
I don't know why I was making it theoretical. I was like, and I'm pretty sure that's Daddy Steinman.
Yeah, Danny Steinman.
Play it on. I know.
Playing in the bushes.
I think he's the creep watching them licking his lip. Anyway, we'll get there. We'll debate that when we get there. Yeah, and it's the same with the skipping ahead just a little bit because this has got to do the dance in between this. But the beer contest, they feel the most real out of all the sets of kids we've seen.
Yeah, totally.
And that's got to be about like those kinds of the comfort that they feel with each other, the trust they have in each other.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a difference on screen because you don't. There's no discomfort in any of the scenes.
Yeah, right.
So, and also, it is doing some different. It's trying out some different moves, because in previous movies, basically, whoever is the virgin is the final girl.
Yeah, right.
But this movie's kind of, at this point, sending me mixed messages about who the final girl might
be.
One of them isn't necessarily a virgin, so I'm already
Because it does feel like Samantha might be our final girl in these moments.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that Samantha, by the way, played by Judy Aronson, and I remember her from Weird Science. And there's a brunette and a blonde. And if you were seeing Weird Science when you were my age at that time, you kind of fell in love with Kelly LeBrock and those two young women.
Sure.
And you always had your favorites, and everybody always thought that the blonde was the more beautiful one. And I always thought, fuck you, to give me that brunette. Judy Aronson is the most beautiful woman ever. And so then years later to watch this movie, and I'm like, hey, there, that's her. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
And this is where we get the introduction of Doug,
Yeah.
where the mysterious hitchhiker, who's
He's
a great
apparently
a
he's
great
hunting
addition.
bears.
What I like about what I like about what I like about this movie is like throwing spanners in the works. So like instead of just being, you've got the kids, right? You've got your demographic of horny teenagers on a trip,
Mm-hmm.
but around that you've got a single parent family, and then you've got
Yeah.
this mysterious hitchhiker who's kind of a visitor, but you don't know his intentions. So
Sure.
thematically, there's way more going on here than in the previous two movies, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without putting a finer point on it as well, it doesn't feel cluttered or unclear. It just feels like, well, we're sort of we're exploring different narrative paths that the story could take.
Yeah.
Even though it's inevitably going to have all the same conclusion.
All the same. Yeah, right, right.
But yeah, obviously the dance is...
Crispin.
Yeah, the movie's worthwhile because it preserved this moment on film.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, and then narratively, I mean, so the kids are having their party and we get Crispin Glover's dance, but then the killings are going to start a-coming.
Yeah.
And it's actually the woman that we thought might be our final girl is like the first person. Is she the first person in the raft?
She is, yeah.
Right?
She's in the rubber. She gets killed in the rubber. Well, the not first person in the movie, but the first in the...
Yeah, right. But of the kids.
In the ensemble of kids, yeah. So she's lying. It's interesting as well, like the setting of this kill, because it kind of visually rhymes with the endings of all three previous movies, which is the vulnerable female victim in a boat.
In a boat, right?
From previous films, and I mean, this is one of the moments that I knew had been cut to shreds by the censors just from watching it, like having no background, because it was like you see the impaling moment, and it's so brief and underlit, and it's like, well, this is what the censors.
This is what they're gonna allow us to show you.
Yeah, I was conscious of that, but it still reads again because you're linking it to those moments in previous movies, where someone's vulnerable in a boat.
Right.
On the water. It's the essence of the series.
Absolutely.
I like that they, again, leaving that space for not questioning the behavior of like the predatory behavior of male teenagers, but not entirely acquiescing to it.
You mean stabbing in the dick?
No, they well, I'll get to the dick spear, but when you cut back to the party and one twin loses.
Oh yeah.
And him, and he goes after the other one. At least they address the tastelessness of doing that, right? It's not seen as a virtue. The twins are not just there as cock candy.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they are, but not just. You know, like there's still a sense of like they address both the kind of, you know. But
they feel like real people still.
Yeah, they address the sexual fantasy of the twins, and that's obviously a big part of why they're there. But it also addresses some of the kind of weirdness of that fantasy. You know what I mean?
Yes,
it's sort of like, what, are you going to just stop talking to one and then go after the other?
Right.
Are you going to have them in the same room together? That's weird.
Because when you see somebody do that, it seems rather distasteful and rude.
Yeah. But the dick spear is great. I like that they it's almost like they included the Nad slice in the recap montage, almost as a preview of this kill. It's like,
That's
you
good.
thought these kills were good. And I mean, again, speaking of quirkiness, there's the breaking of the bed.
Yeah.
They get in the bed and it immediately breaks, and then there's probably the strangest and possibly most effective choice in this movie is having them watch silent movie porn.
Yeah, right.
Which I sort of understand, like, because what they're watching is pre-code pornography, like the movies that Hollywood made before it was held to moral account by the Hays Code. So, you know, it speaks to the ongoing battle of this series with the censors, and the idea of a more of a freer time in filmmaking.
Yeah, I mean, the next movie is really heavy on the gore,
Mm-hmm.
but I still get the sense that, well, maybe these two movies, these are the two, maybe 4 and 5 were the ones that really kind of suffered.
Yeah.
In always kind of jockeying with the MPAA. I would argue that it's a bigger crime against this movie because this is such a better movie, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I agree. But it's such an it's an offbeat way to fight back by having porn films from the 1910s kind of playing in the background of your movie. I like that choice a lot. Also, I mean, we'll get there later, but it's also kind of gives it a kind of meta quality, which is interesting too. And this is my really my only kind of reservation about the movie is at this part of the movie you get a lot of slow suspense scenes at night.
Yeah.
Which drag on a little bit.
Like Mom is kind of walking around, isn't she, in the dark? And
like sometimes if you overcrank suspense, especially when it's not lit properly, your interest can start to drift quite quickly.
Yeah, but within it, I think there are moments that pop. I love the moment.
Yeah.
When the twin gets stabbed, kind of you see it in shadow with the lightning. That is a great effect.
It is, yeah. No, absolutely. I just, kind of, if I had to say something about the movie that I felt was lacking, it would be that maybe they.
I don't think it doesn't happen for too long though.
No,
it's not enough for your interest really to wane, right?
No, I don't think so. But it's I just think it's sort of dead time.
Sure.
In some of these scenes, Jimmy gets his oats, and he's apparently incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, and again, like along with the kid who makes animatronics, and the nerd getting the girl, and her telling him that he was incredible,
that he was quite good.
This is real nerd fantasy stuff, This is straining.
Maybe it can happen to me too.
Yeah, exactly. Straining the realms of credulity. It's kind of super bad sort of
right
aspect to it. And then the corkscrew moment which starts as a punchline, and then thanks to Savini's shocking makeup gets serious very quickly.
Yeah. Big time.
So it starts as a laugh and then ends as a that looks that's terrifying.
Yeah, it's terrifying incredible. Because it's immediately followed by a hatchet to the head, to the face.
And it's the sex is death rule, of course, but applied to the male, which we haven't really done quite as much. Yeah.
I like that.
So I like that twist. Another great twist is
and I think right before that.
Go on. Yeah.
No, go ahead. I was just going to speak to the narrative again. Okay. I think we cause right before the corkscrew death, I realized that Trish and Tommy come home. Mom's not there. The lights are all out. I do think it's funny that she just says, "Okay, you stay here and don't you go anywhere." Just leaves them alone. But she's gonna go find Doug, who's pitched a tent. And so there's some shenanigans there. At one point, I think Jason is outside the tent, but he's not in the tent. And then Trish comes to the tent and he slashes his own tent open.
That must have angered you.
Speaking as a backpacker, I'll tell you something I would never do. That's very upsetting.
You ought to set up like those niche review sites that only review a movie from one particular perspective.
Right. Yeah.
You should do like a backpackers review. 0 stars for Friday the 13th.
Yeah. The other thing, we spoke about one of the twins who's not getting laid, or actually, I think it's better than that because she's actually not interested in anybody.
Right.
Genuinely interested in anybody. So she's gonna leave, and she's the one that gets lightning stabbed. Meanwhile, her sister is fucking Crispin Glover, and then Crispin gets it downstairs. Narratively, they have to cover some stuff up. I mean, if a corkscrew went through my hand, I think I'd scream, but but they cover it well.
Not if you were Crispin Glover, necessarily.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a man who makes strange choices in life.
That is true. But what I like is that enough time passes that the other twin is upstairs and sort of looking for, like, well, where'd she go? What happened to her? She looks out and sees like a shadow or something that looks like her, and you get one of two great stunts in this movie that are so far above board in terms of how good they are and how well they're shot that each time I watch these movies, I'm astounded all over again when I watch them, and I just think it's fantastic. And so Jason's is going to be grabbing her through the wind, throwing her coming through a window and throwing her out, and like tracking her falling and hitting the roof of a car. It's great. It's so good.
Yeah, more window action is essential to these movies.
Oh yeah, it's their bread and butter.
And again, it's like a tribute, isn't it? It's sort of like it's the greatest hits. We've got to get everything in one more time,
right?
But hopefully better than ever, and that's
what they're going for, and I think achieve.
And this is it's around here that we find out that Doug is the brother of one of the victims from part 2.
The curly-haired girl with the blonde, the two at the payphone in part 2.
I'm not too worried about identifying here because I don't think either the
I'm not sure the movie has.
Knew they would who his sister was.
Right.
And then he's got the newspaper clippings that refer back to the original, and I pointed out as a weakness of the last film that nobody ever finds out the Jason story, like no one knows it.
Right. Yeah.
So we've gone back to those, the newspaper clippings. We've got the geophysical reviews.
Yes, as sequels must.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. It's a classic Imbas newspaper clippings.
Oh yeah.
But it also it reminds us that as much as we might make fun of the discontinuities between these movies, they are trying to operate within a single storyline.
Yeah, right.
Haphazardly, but
yes,
unsuccessfully, but still, the
but attempting
there to link the movies together in some fashion. And
sure,
I appreciate that touch, and again, it's essential for the end. Those clippings are essential for the storyline because they inform the ending. How it turns out, we're back to shower sex.
Yeah, sure.
Steamy for us, but marks out whoever's having a shower for death.
Yeah.
Again, sort of like every one of these movies has some kind of tribute / inversion to Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of it's interesting. But
it's interesting that
this is the first movie where someone actually gets killed in the shower.
Yes.
Right? Because every time it's been a fake out.
Right. Exactly.
So far. So this is the movie that had the balls to finally kill someone in the shower.
And it's funny because with sequels we talk about the idea that sequels have to kind of one-upsmanship of them.
Mm-hmm.
We got to raise the stakes, and this is trying to raise the stakes on 1960s Psycho by, we don't have a curtain, we've got a glass.
That's right.
As always with these movies, but hands through the glass and literally. What's his? I think it's Doug, right? Doug getting his the back of his head and the back of his head against the shower, or the wall, and the front of his face with Jason's dirty hand.
Yeah.
But you get that same Janet Leigh shot of his feet.
Mm-hmm.
But except they're surrounded with glass. It's fucking great. It's a great little homage.
And it's another window. It's another piece of window action.
Oh yeah.
But indoor window action.
Yeah, I think maybe right before that murder, Ted gets it. I think does Ted get it first in
Yeah,
the,
he
the
gets.
movie screen?
I have it. Yes, he does get it first.
And
Yes,
as I
he.
recall in his Crystal Lake memories, this is the moment where he said, "Well, the character's stoned. Maybe I should try to be stoned."
And that's what I really, again, that points to the contrast between the representation of the characters from the last movie,
Yeah.
because he's less conspicuous as a stoner than Cheech and Chong were
Yes.
in
Right.
Cheech and Lady Chong. They're total archetypes. He's not an archetype of a stoner, but not only is he actually stoned on screen, but if you've ever spent any time with stoners, his version
Of a stoner,
much,
right?
is much more authentic than theirs.
Yes.
Because he's just permanently smiling, taking in everything.
Taking in
happening.
everything. He's looking at the film
Again
by just pulling it down.
Yeah, not doing anything substantial. There's no dialogue. There's no jokes.
Because he's always by himself.
Yeah,
He's like holding teddy bears. Was it teddy bears or what's he holding?
yeah. It's this movie has the confidence to sort of just give him screen time to be,
Mm-hmm.
and it reads much better than having devised comedic bits.
Yeah.
And this
And
movie kind of understands that.
I think the last one in this house for now is Sarah gets the axe through the door, right? That's Doug's girlfriend.
Yeah,
And it's cool looking.
Ted's kill is great. I mean,
It's so good.
The looping film reel and the knife through the screen, and I think it looks ahead to the metatextuality of movies like Scream.
Mm-hmm.
I think a choice like this could be like a forebearer of what happens at the beginning of Scream 2. Where they have a murder in a movie theater.
Movie theater, yeah.
Yeah. So I found that very forward-looking in terms of, but it's not, unlike Scream. It's not the point of the film in the same way, but
no.
As an added metatextual touch, I think it's really interesting.
But I talked about this
Wes
in the
Craven being
ranking.
influenced by it.
Right. And I talked about this in the ranking episode where I see other movies borrowing from these sequels.
Yeah.
And these sequels have always been, we've also talked about how they've been derided as lesser than, but when other movies are borrowing from your shit, how bad are you?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And good movies too.
Yeah.
And, they honed a lot of the techniques for making slasher movies or even just general horror movies in these films.
Mm-hmm.
Between Joseph Zito, Steve Miner, and yes, Danny Steinman. There's some great kills in the next movie, and of course Tom McLaughlin. They you can see the influence of their approach to slasher filmmaking in the next 20-30 years of horror cinema.
Yeah, totally. Well, we're about... Sorry.
No, I was saying it's a chicken and an egg situation because
they're
ripping off everybody else and then everyone else starts to rip off them.
Off them, yeah.
They're right in the middle of that.
That's interesting.
They're in the weeds of...
You can start off being the borrower and end up being the one borrowed from. That's cool.
Exactly, yeah. That's the story of this series, I think. Because
I think it's the sort of thing that happens when I'll go to Mancuso Jr. I'll give him the credit for finding good people.
Yeah.
And then giving them the autonomy to do good work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just, letting them do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're about to get to, our main heroes are about to start getting killed and chased. Why don't we take another break and come back?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. We'll do that then. We'll be back.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
Back once again, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here finishing up with a damn good movie, Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Yeah.
This is some good shit.
It really is, yeah. And I was saying off mic that I probably the fewest amount of notes.
Yeah, you were just watching it, huh?
Yeah, which speaks to both how I'm transfixed and also, I haven't necessarily... It's not wholly clear to me why this movie is as good as it is. There is some magical elixir that can't be accounted for by film criticism.
I think it speaks...
So it's just a matter of observing that without really commenting on it, because I don't know what to say, because I wonder if the people who worked on this movie even quite understood what they had on their
Maybe.
hands.
I mean, for one, I think it speaks well of the film because I can't imagine you not taking a lot of notes.
I mean, it's all relative. It's still a lot of notes, but there are times when it's just like that's a really cool dance, and
yeah, right.
I guess all trying to figure out what the formula is. And it's like, well, Napoleon Dynamite has that too. It has this awkward, weird central performance, and there's a dance moment in it, which looks spontaneous, but is obviously choreographed.
Very, right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we've got a moment coming up. You've been speaking to the idiosyncratic moments of this movie, and one of these moments, at least for me, I dismissed it first because it made me laugh out loud, and then I went back and watched it again with a new intent, and it's when Doug is killed.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm referring to?
No, not at all. No, tell me.
He's killing me.
Uh-huh.
Just the idea of when I think it's a gardening tool. He and Trish are walking around the house. They're looking around. They go down into the basement.
Oh, yes. Of course. Yes.
And out of nowhere, Jason pops up and he just starts hacking at Doug. And Doug starts screaming, "He's killing me! He's killing me!" Which to me was a very funny line the first time I heard it.
Yeah.
And so I laughed out loud. I loved seeing that moment. And then maybe 4 minutes later, I just paused the movie. And I started thinking about, was that moment less honest, or rather was it more honest than I gave it credit for?
It is. It is. I think it gives that scene a tragic dimension.
It does. When you go back
she basically has to
decide
fight or flight.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fight or flight, and the horror movies have those pivotal moments. They feed off them. So wherever you can throw one in, I think whenever you can throw in a human dilemma in the middle of a horror movie, I think the genre really welcomes those scenarios.
And we haven't spoken about this yet, but I think Ted White, who's Jason in this movie, I think it's my favorite Jason performance.
Sure.
Of the movies we've watched. The other movies, you have some slow walk lumbering, I think they're
I mean, it's all over.
They're trying to do a Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Two, he's
No,
a little more speedy in two, but he has that goofy, uncoordinated, childlike qualities as he's doing it as well.
That's the big drawback.
And in this one, Jason will run after you, and he feels like a freight train you cannot stop, and that is frightening.
Yeah. He's also speaking to, another Michael Myers hangover. He's displaying craft and intelligence in his killing by cutting the phone line.
Yeah, right. Sneaky.
So that's a sneaky Michael Myers.
He's got a sneaky aspect to him I like.
The director's also got a great sense of parallel editing between the two different situations. So, before we get into the house with Tommy and Trish, we're kind of cutting between the two houses.
Yeah, right.
And
we're going back and forth.
Interplay really
well. Yeah.
Like the axe is coming through the door and Tommy's coming down the stairs, and it's just, I think it's really well handled. We get another rat
because it's choreographed. It feels choreographed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another rat.
So again, greatest hits. Completing the franchise.
And don't we have? I believe Trish goes. She once again tells Tommy to stay put, and she goes over to the other house herself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Tommy reads the reviews of the first three movies.
Yeah, right.
And
I like that Corey Feldman himself talks about how are we going. He says, how are we going to kill the guy in the end? What do you have to do? You have to use intelligence.
Yeah.
I love that the actors say that. And I get what he's saying intellectually about making himself look like Jason. But whenever I see him cutting and then quickly shaving his own head, I have the sense that maybe Tommy wasn't all right to begin with. Maybe the weird kid was weirder than we thought.
Yeah. Absolutely, hence the last shot of the movie.
Yeah.
And my note is, it's not a terrible way for him to be able to manipulate Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it calls back, it's a complete callback to the end of 2.
Yeah, right.
The child psychologist trying to dupe him, but we're not quite there yet, but it's it's an inversion of that as well, because Tommy wants him to see
himself.
Jason to see himself as opposed to his mother, but it's the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, I guess it's linked. It's the child psychologist training was the impetus in 2.
Mm-hmm.
The impetus here is this is a kid who enjoys make believe and is a aspiring makeup artist and prosthetics designer, and this is all related to that side of his character.
Right.
And he's got access to the story of Jason, so he can create a fictional scenario based on that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not terrible at all. It's not, you don't want to think too much about it, but at the same time, it sort of barely stands up to scrutiny.
Yeah,
I think the biggest problem, I think, is the artist's impression of Jason in the newspaper clippings, because that means Jason has to go from that to Muscle Mary in 5 years.
Yeah, sure.
It's like, come on.
He's really pumping logs out there, He's curling logs.
And we get the classic House of Horrors moment with corpses being discovered.
Yeah, very Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween and the rip-offs of Halloween,
including earlier in this series. Yeah. But I also think I wonder if this was intentional on Joseph Zito's part, because once she leaves that house and she comes back into her own home, and she's trying to nail windows shut.
Yeah.
It seemed to me that was a moment designed to have the audience say, "Just leave, bitch!" Fucking start running,
Well, it sounds like Joseph Zito's on top of that, so I wouldn't be at all surprised.
But they draw it out nicely, I think, before Rob is thrown through the window.
Mm-hmm. There's also the is it Rob who gets a TV smashed over their head?
Jason.
Is it Rob? Oh, that's right. It's Jason, isn't it?
Trish gets Jason.
And speaking of, that's right. And speaking of, influencing other franchises.
Yeah, Scream.
Is it Nightmare 3?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's ready for primetime, bitch.
We're with primetime, bitch. But this is prior, so.
Yeah, you're right.
And also, in all of these films, if you see anything once, it will have some function in the plot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you look at something for more than 2 seconds on screen, it's gonna play a part at some point.
Sure.
And we've seen that TV. We've had a shot of that TV, so we know.
And I like, because we talked in 2 about toggling back and forth between the victim and Jason's point of view. Yeah. In this one, we do have some toggling back and forth between suspense and flight, a terror kind of moments. Because I think it's right after she hits him with the TV, she's trying to sneak around him.
Yes.
It's a good moment, and it builds and builds, and then all of a sudden you see his hand kind of go around, I think, an axe.
There's a great, back to basics suspense moment when they block the door of the room and he's trying to get through. Mm-hmm. And, you have that sense of, okay, now we've got time. And then he starts to break through the door and push everything. Goes, actually, no, you don't. Yeah, you don't. So it's and that's, again, as very back to basics, as right. Like, textbook, but in a way that, it's a classic for a reason.
And now, because we see her nailing the window shut. Isn't this also the moment that he throws the hammer? Mm-hmm. I love that moment. That moment is awesome because he breaks through the door. And then he's got a hammer in his hand and he wings it right at Trish's head and it hits the wall.
Everything to do with that hammer is really gruesome. It doesn't feel...
It goes into his neck, too. When he grabs Tommy through the window.
It doesn't feel like the movie's holding back at those moments.
Yes, exactly.
And she does what everyone in the series should have done at this previously, which is to just jump out the window.
Right.
So it's like if Jason's continually attacking through the window, all you have to remember it's like Tom Stoppard. Every entrance is an exit to somewhere else. Yeah, just jump right out of the window.
But I like that moment where Doug comes through the window, but they're backing away from it because they think he's going to come right through. And you wait just long enough to think maybe Jason's fucking with him and he's going to leave him alone. And that's when he comes through the window and grabs Tommy. And even Corey Feldman himself said, I've never been more terrified than that moment. I like that,
absolutely. It's.
But when you also go back to Ted White, I don't think he liked Corey Feldman too much.
They didn't get on.
They didn't get on too well. So he really kind of wanted to throttle him. So I like the idea that he goes through that window and giving Corey Feldman the business.
And there was even again, nothing in these movies is wasted. There's like an innocuous line early on that Tommy needs a haircut.
Mm-hmm.
And now we see him
cutting his hair.
We see him shaving his head. So it's like nothing that happens in the movie is ever a one-time deal. It's always going to get called back at some point.
And it's funny because narratively, it seems like a bad idea because it's going to take too much time for this kid to cut his hair and shave his head.
Yeah.
But they cover it just fine because Jason starts chasing Trish to the next house. And we're going to get the best stunt in the entire movie out of it.
Do you know what really covers it? I mean, that's enough, but what really covers it is he's not smooth.
Yeah.
He's got little bits of hair.
Yeah.
So you can suspend disbelief that, he did as good a job as he could, but he didn't have time to
do it well or perfect.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I spoke about it before. Jason is running after Trish. He is not moving slowly. Her life is in peril and danger. It raises the stakes. He chases her up the stairs. They have this moment of facing off, which is fantastic.
And he can see now.
Yeah,
I guess that's the difference, because he was quite fast in part
That's
2,
helpful.
but he kept falling over. Now he can see.
But Trish jumping out that window,
Yeah.
I look at that shot and think because there's a rail outside when she jumps out the window and then through two pieces of wood, but she goes under a rail after jumping out a window. To me, it's like a magic trick.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It feels like it must have happened by accident. And I imagine if I was Joseph Zito, I would think, I would say out loud, did you get that? Did you fucking get that? Because that was perfect. It'll never happen that perfect again, you know?
Yeah.
It's one of the most incredible stunts I've ever seen. It's so fucking good. I love it.
Same with the Spy Who Loved Me. That stunt, you see, you know, the stuntman's seconds away from getting impaled with a ski, but it just misses him. I mean, this is why audiences are yearning for practical stunts in their movies. So much so that, you know, they'll watch as many Mission Impossible movies as they'll release.
Sure.
Just to see that one shot where
of Tom Cruise breaking his ankle.
Yeah. Well, just nearly dying. Yeah, and you know, it's the end of the hockey mask. Acting as if it's been there all the time, wasn't added halfway through the last movie. But you know, it's the hockey mask has sort of become the icon. It's even in the title credits for this movie, so it's become synonymous with Jason, even though he only got it
halfway through the last movie.
Yeah. So we're wrapping up brand new mythology.
Yeah, it is.
And then we get another of these moments. Is the same in part 2, where you see Jason. They see Jason's face, which, by the way, is completely different every time.
Yeah, it is, right? They think there's continuity within it, but I would swear sometimes that droopy eye is on the opposite side of the last time it was.
Yeah, sometimes he has hair, sometimes he's bald, sometimes he's a little, kid. He's a boy, sometimes he's a big man. But yeah, it's not consistent across or within the movies.
No.
But the thing that gets me as well is they always have to have the shock moment of the moment of repulsion. Yeah. And I'm like, what? Did you think he was handsome under there? What's the surprise? What's the shock? But they give Jason. Again, I think I mentioned in previous episodes that zombie was taboo on this and I believe the previous movie. They would never say zombie, that Jason was a zombie, but they would go right up to that line.
Right, yeah.
As much as possible. But this is giving Jason the zombie kill, isn't it? Like it's the spike through the head, which is how you finish off a zombie, you go for the brain.
Oh, it's a cool Tom Savini though, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. No, and I think
the machete to the top of the head, the machete to the top of the head with the slide down when he falls to the floor. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah. And it has to be, because it has to convince us that even
that we're done.
Jason is dead now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even the twice resurrected Jason is now dead. So that's why it's a zombie kill, and why it has to be all on screen.
And I spoke to this in the ranking episode, but again, well, for you, we go back to slow motion, which is how these movies kind of end in the last moment of trying to kill Jason. And I think it always works too. And
greatest hit. Well, you got to do it because it's great. Yeah, right. It's the last one.
And then on top of it, as far as we knew at the time. But the one thing I remember all kids talking about was, I don't think we knew he was Corey Feldman yet, but this kid's got the machete and slow motion
going ape shit
and saying die, die,
103
die.
fever.
Yes, and he was sick to boot. Can you believe it?
He's clearly sick. I mean, that's it. Yeah, but he just he just keeps going, and it's one of the lightning in a bottle moments on a different, and obviously the anecdote about him having a high fever at the time is part. It shows that it's like on another day. There's another day at another time of day he would never.
Right.
He wouldn't be. It wouldn't have gone to that extreme. But again, we've caught it on film. This murderous madness.
Yeah.
And even if you didn't have the look at camera from this
No,
shot,
yeah,
would still
you don't
get the
need it.
sense
I mean,
of, oh, the series could carry on with Tommy as the
yeah,
killer.
sure. But it's
Yeah.
funny because the way it's shot, the way it's filmed, in the middle of it, you start asking yourself, what is this going to do to Tommy? You
Yeah.
already have that sense. That's fantastic.
Mhm.
You know, that's a great little turn of filmmaking to me.
Yeah, and it's, you know, the twist of kind of it, there's a new Jason and we'll continue the sequels through him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, you know, this is where Halloween and Friday the 13th pass each other
Yeah.
ships in the
Right.
night, because Halloween 4 will take this idea
Mm-hmm.
for Jamie Strode.
Yeah, right.
Because that film hasn't been made yet. And then Halloween 5 will blow it just as badly as Friday the 13th. Part 5 blew it. But yeah, it's the same thing. You know, it ends on a cliffhanger that opens the door for the new series.
Mm-hmm.
Is the child victim become?
Is he now the
Yeah.
evil?
Is he
And
now
even
the
producers
evil
at the
and-
time would have said, you know, it's funny because the latest incarnation of the Halloween series has picked up this idea, the idea
Absolutely.
of evil being infectious and passing it on,
Yeah,
you know?
and dying tonight.
Yes.
No, absolutely. I think it reminds you that again, like best left unsolved. Sometimes these ideas are better as potential than
Then,
realization.
yeah, right.
You sort of, because you have an idea in your mind that's like, oh, why didn't New Beginning follow through on the idea that Tommy becomes the new Jason?
Well, because
Why did
he was
why
doing
didn't
Goonies and Gremlins.
No, well, yeah, obviously not the in-world reason, and with Jamie Strode, you go, oh, you know, they set this all up and then they backed away from
Right.
it, but would they have been able to pull it off? I don't know.
Right. Well, Halloween, I dare say, no.
Nope, absolutely not. Yeah, the answer is no.
Well,
It's no from me.
I mean, there you have it. I think this might be the high watermark, other than the first move of the sequels, right? In terms of ratings,
Ratings for
like Rotten Tomatoes.
what did you say? It was
24%?
27? I
No,
think,
part 2 was
2 was
29%. Yeah.
higher. Yeah, I remember it being higher.
All right.
Um,
Oh, and I forgot. 6 is really high. It's like 50%.
oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, well, we'll tackle that when we
Yeah.
get there.
But at any rate,
Yeah, that's the
one of the best. Wherever you put it, it's close to the top.
definitely. I think, and I think it creates a conversation about part 4s.
Hmm.
Like, is there a kind of a renaissance?
Maybe because Halloween 4 is
in the part
good.
4?
Although in the Nightmare series, people gravitate, I think, more to 3.
But 4 is very well. I don't know. I mean, we've got Rennie Harlan tinted glasses, so
True.
I don't know if. But I'd certainly speak up for that.
Yeah.
For Nightmare 4. I don't know if it applies elsewhere. I guess Die Hard. What's that? What's it called?
Live Free or Die Hard.
Live Free or Die Hard. Die Hard 4.0 in the UK. I mean, that's an achievement. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you know, I would open that conversation based on a few examples that we've
For sure.
seen so far.
Well, credit
And
check.
we'll continue to see. Yeah. So the list of returning cast members who only feature in archive footage is getting longer. with
Longer,
every-
longer, and longer. Yeah, for sure.
So it's either this or fan films. That's basically how these actors keep going.
Perfect.
They relitigate the stunt double controversies of Part 2 by listing both the Jason Stuntman, but not the actor.
Okay.
Listing Jason as a stuntman. So they finally realized that.
Well, they hired an actual stuntman, so
you hire you hire the stuntman, and he's Jason, and now they're saying Jason stuntman. I was like, oh, come on, no, he's the actor. Let's not get into this again. Extra casting by Complete Casting Service Incorporated, which sounds awfully made up.
Right.
If I would never reply to an email from Complete Casting Service Incorporated.
That's a casting couch.
My information would be gone.
That's a
in 60 seconds.
Yeah, that's a casting couch I want no part of.
I'm gonna have to pay for those auditions that don't exist. Love Is a Lie, performed by Lion. Lion is in scare quotes.
Oh, is it?
and no other recording artist is in quotes. So is this his secret? Is this a secret alias? Is this like Elton John or something?
I don't know.
And then finally, two credits I noticed: Flashlight Man and Running Man. Both sound like dances of the time. Right, both sound like dances of the time, but only the latter would become. Maybe when you listen to when you're dancing to the Harry Manfredi Part 3 soundtrack, you're doing the Flashlight Man.
Maybe, yeah, right. Was that it?
That's it. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, is in the books. You're going to have to tell us what you think. We're big fans. This movie's good.
Another thought I had while we were talking about it today. Again, this is not the final chapter, but if we give them the benefit of the doubt that that's what they were making, it puts pay to the theory that what Rise of Skywalker needed was like 2 movies to finish the series.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is both a great movie in its own right and the perfect ending to Friday the 13th.
Sure,
so it is possible.
Right, yeah.
It is possible to sort of, be a servant to 2 masters if you've got your shit together. If
you can get it together.
So.
Well said, sir.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, you're going to have to tell us what you think, ladies and gentlemen. You know what to do. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and nothing else. Send an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com.
Oh, come on. He's supporting Russell Brand. He's supporting the victims of mainstream media conspiracies against people who have a lot of sex.
Yeah. I have nothing more to say on the matter.
No, well, no, I shouldn't have said anything. haven't heard from our lawyers in a while. I think we're probably due a call.
Yeah, we're always good.
I think that's them. Actually, I think that's them now.
Yeah, we're always good for some slander somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's it for Friday the 13th, the final chapter. When you hear us next, we'll be talking Friday the 13th. We're back to numbers. Well, back to Roman numerals. We're going...
Then numbers.
Yeah, we're going back...
No, Roman numerals, then words.
Yes. So Friday the 13th, part 5, It's a New Beginning. I'm saying it's a new beginning. That's not part of the title. But...
Yeah. It's a new beginning. That would be amazing.
All right, for Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. We'll be back next week. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
Axel, you are the Super Bowl of self-abuse. I think that was the line that made me fall in love with the movie.
Yeah.
That's in the hospital. That's in the coroner's office.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Backler.
The Super Bowl of self-abuse.
We'll let those be the final words. So long, everyone.